This happened a few months ago. I've been driving for Lyft for a few years now, and I usually stick to late-night shifts. The roads are quieter and the tips are better. But there's a trade-off. Every once in a while, you get a story that sticks with you, and not in a good way. I've always thought of myself as careful. I've dealt with my fair share of odd passengers, but nothing, and I mean nothing, came close to being as strange as what I'm about to tell you. I didn't have a dash cam at the time, and that night was the reason I installed one. It started off normal enough, just me and the odd sounds my car would occasionally make. I've got this beat-up 2005 Volvo, but it's reliable as hell. The streets were deserted, which, like I said, I preferred. Sometime after 2 a.m., I got a request from a convenience store nearby. Seemed harmless at first, but for some reason, I got this weird feeling in my gut. You ever get that feeling like something's off, but you can't explain why? That's exactly what hit me as I drove up. Before I even saw the guy, I figured out why I was getting that gut feeling. The convenience store I was pulling up to was closed. All the lights were off, and there wasn't a single car in the lot. As I got closer, I saw him. I made sure to drive slowly so I could get a good look. He was pacing outside the store, wearing this ratty hoodie with a hole in the sleeve. His movements were jerky, like he couldn't stand still, and he kept glancing over his shoulder like someone was after him. If I had to guess, he was on something. I probably should have canceled the ride and driven away. I even hovered my finger over the cancel button, but for whatever reason I didn't. I unlocked the doors and he slid into the back seat without a word. I regretted it the moment I took my foot off the brake. Most people either scroll on their phones or stare out the window, but not him. He just sat there staring at me through the rearview mirror, not blinking, not looking away, just staring. I tried not to look back, but I couldn't help it. He looked angry, which was unsettling. I turned on the radio to break the silence, but the moment the music started, he snapped at me to turn it off. His voice was deep and raspy, like a smoker's. It caught me off guard, and I jerked the wheel a little. I did as he said, gripping the wheel tighter. We drove in silence for a while, and I thought maybe he'd just sit there quietly until we got to his stop. But then he spoke. He asked me if I'd ever picked up someone I shouldn't have. That question hit me like a brick. I let out an awkward laugh and said, "Well, I hope not." He didn't react. He just leaned back and muttered something I couldn't hear. Then he started talking about how he used to be an Uber driver, but quit because some punks stole stuff from his car. He was slurring his words, so I couldn't make out everything, but I got the gist. The whole time he was smiling. A normal person wouldn't smile talking about something like that. Then he said, "It's funny how much trust you put in someone sitting right behind you." That's when I started thinking of him as a threat. My pulse sped up and I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was spinning. I glanced at the GPS, focusing on the destination like it was a lifeline, but he didn't stop talking. He kept babbling, some of it concerning, some of it just gibberish. Eventually, he started apologizing to someone, not me, saying he'd done something awful and that he was a bad person. He kept repeating, "I didn't mean it," over and over. We were only a few minutes from his stop when he yelled that I'd missed the turn. I didn't miss it. The GPS showed we were on track, but I slammed on the brakes anyway, mostly out of fear. He demanded I pull over, so I did. My hands were shaking. I just wanted it to be over. As soon as I shifted into park, headlights appeared behind us. It was a police car. I said a silent prayer and watched as it crept down the road, its spotlight briefly sweeping over my car. The guy in my back seat slumped down, trying to stay out of sight. I turned my head and saw him lying flat on the back seat with his eyes closed. He stayed like that for an uncomfortably long time, before finally lifting his head and saying, "You got lucky." Then he opened the door and disappeared. I called my shift short after that. I was shaken up and didn't feel like driving anymore. A few weeks later, I came across a news article. A convenience store had been robbed on the night I picked up that passenger, 2 blocks from where I'd picked him up. It makes me sick knowing I was inches away from a dangerous criminal who could have harmed me if he'd chosen to. I'm much more cautious about who I let in my car now. I used to live in the city. The urban lifestyle was what I always envisioned for myself, but after a traumatic experience, I couldn't bear even the smallest noises. My psychiatrist told me I'd developed a rare case of phonophobia, a constant pins and needles feeling in my chest, like my body was bracing for something that wasn't coming. Every car horn or slamming door felt like a jolt to my nerves. I couldn't keep living like that. About 3 years ago, I found a cabin deep in the Pacific Northwest. I won't say exactly where, but it was somewhere in Oregon. It seemed perfect. Few neighbors, no traffic, barely any cell service. What sold me was the silence. It was just me and the peace and quiet. For the first time in months, I thought I might actually feel safe. The cabin was small but cozy. It smelled like pine and old books, with thick wooden beams and a sturdy stone fireplace. The nearest neighbor lived about a 10-minute walk down a narrow dirt path. I didn't meet her right away. For the first few days, I just soaked in the silence. I'd wake up to the sound of birds instead of sirens, and at night, the only thing I heard was the wind brushing through the trees. It was like the world had pressed pause. About a week after I moved in, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find an older woman carrying a basket of preserves. She introduced herself as Michelle and said she lived 10 minutes down the trail. She had long gray hair and piercing blue eyes that felt like they could see right through you. She wasn't rude, just blunt. She handed me the basket and said, "Always keep your lanterns full, your windows shut tight, and your wits sharper than your axe." It sounded more like a warning than advice. That night, there was a thunderstorm. I lit a few candles and curled up on the couch with a book. The power flickered, but I didn't mind. The natural sounds of the storm were soothing. But then there was a bang at the door. I grabbed a flashlight and looked through the window. It was Michelle, soaked to the bone. She said she'd seen someone near my woodpile, and that I should know about it. I stepped onto the porch, shining my flashlight into the rain, but I couldn't see anything. Before I could say anything else, she told me to be careful and walked away. I went back inside, but something didn't sit right. How could she have seen someone near my woodpile if her house was 10 minutes away? Was she lying? I locked up the cabin and sat in my room, listening. Hours passed without incident, so I decided to go to sleep. But sometime after midnight, I woke up to the sound of a branch snapping outside my window. I crept to the window and saw Michelle standing at the edge of the woods, staring at my cabin. I ducked down before she could see me, and when I looked again, she was gone. The next morning, I called the police. They arrived quickly but didn't find anything. I begged them to search Michelle's property, but when we got there, the cabin was abandoned. The cops said no one had lived there in decades. I moved out of that cabin the next day, but I still think about that experience. Some say Michelle was a spirit trying to protect me. I don't believe in the paranormal, but I'll never understand why she warned me if she was the one snooping around. My name's Luke. My girlfriend, Catherine, and I met 3 years ago as freshmen at Stanford. We're both from Ohio, which is probably why we clicked so fast. One of our traditions is splitting Christmas between our families. We spend Christmas Eve with my family and drive through the night to her house for Christmas Day. It's become our favorite part of the holiday. Just us, the quiet back roads, and Juice WRLD blasting through the speakers. This past Christmas Eve started like any other. We packed up my car around midnight and hit the road. The snow was falling lightly and the roads were deserted. Everything felt perfect. But then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I ignored it, thinking it was a scam call. A few minutes later, it rang again. Same number. I ignored it again. But when it rang a third time, I answered. The voice on the other end was calm, almost conversational. He said, "Hello, Luke." Then he started reciting personal information, my full name, my address, details about my life that no stranger should know. My mind was racing. I wanted to pull over, but I kept driving, like I was in a trance. Then he said, "I'm not here for you. I'm here for Catherine." I pulled over, my hands shaking. Catherine hung up the phone before I could say anything else. I tried calling the number back, but it didn't go through. The rest of the drive was silent. When we got to her house, I still didn't feel safe. It's been a month, and I still don't know who that was or how they knew so much about us. But I know they'll call again. It's just a matter of time.